craftsmen did a great job of keeping this in fit. And again, you can see, here again, you can see this, where the papers were put together, because this is a very, very old example. Again, what happens too is, one thing people ask me, in this period, how was this applied to the wall? Now, construction back in the 17th and 18th centuries was much more crude than it is today. We didn't have wonderful walls as we have here. The walls were brick. The interior walls were brick. They were wood. They were wood lath. So, and then people that could afford did plaster over the wood lath to have a more uniform wall. But rubber skin glue was used. Animal skin glue, any kind of animal skin glue was used a lot of times. But also, tacks were used, because in some areas it was very, very humid, and what would happen is the glue would come through the paper and stain the paper, so it would be ruined quite easily. So tacks were used quite extensively in the 17th and 18th centuries to apply wallpapers to the walls, wallpapers to the walls. This is another French. This is a forerunner to the French toile designs. This is still a block print. It's a scenic, very allegorical, as you can see, and it's a 4 to 5 color block print. And again, if you look carefully, you can see where the papers were glued together to form a larger piece of paper. That was, again, is about 1775, 1780, France. Well, this is, I don't know if you can see this, this is a British example. In Britain, in France, the French were known for their color. They loved color and they worked with color forever. The English were a little more straightforward in the way they approached design and color. They didn't use color that much in the 17th and 18th centuries. These artists were interested in transforming on paper what was carved in wood. So this is called the grisaille technique. In French, it's called grisaille. It's a technique done in all one color. And it, again, is to simulate carved wood, as carved wood is just one color. Wood was never painted back then, because the carved wood was always a very exotic, a very hard wood, so hardwoods were not painted. Soft woods were painted because when you made furniture out of soft wood, usually you used different kinds of wood, so you painted it all to make it look, you didn't see like it was different kinds of woods. But when they carved wood, when they carved doors, when they carved overmantels, when they carved anything like that in the manor houses, they all used very, very hard woods, very exotic, with mahogany, imported mahogany or walnut. So that was all one color. So the idea with the English designers, they wanted to recreate, even though it's a naturalistic design, a lot of designs also were created that are architectural as well. But even though this is naturalistic, this was created in the grisaille technique, which is tone on tone, you might call it. Getting into the mid to late 18th century, painted walls or painted wallpaper was very, very important too, just one color. Now, this is a texture that simulates fabric. The fabric is a silk, but this is also carved out of wood, and it's a 2-3 color design. And these techniques were also very, very popular because they didn't have a lot of design on the walls, but they still wanted a little bit of interest and a little bit of texture.
Did they actually paint the plaster walls in similar ways?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, faux painting was not done. The painting was just done as a single color.
So this type of textured painting wasn't done?
No. Just this was done on wallpaper. A lot of this kind of technique also was imported into America in the 18th century. In fact, right now, Mount Vernon is redoing the Washington's main room, the last room that he had built, the main ballroom, and it's totally being restored. And I saw some of the restoration work that was being done. That is actually a painted wallpaper on that wall, and it's bordered with a simple architectural border, which I'll show you. Also, borders were very, very important at the time, along with but if you, it was really for the latter part of the 18th century. This kind of work or a painted wallpaper was very, very important with little borders, bordering the windows, bordering the doors, to make it neat, and it was very, very fashionable.
Like a different color? Like if that was a gray on the wall, would they use a different color border?
Well, I'll show you. There would have been, well, the border would have simulated architectural work,
Okay.
whether it be dental molding, or whether it be an architectural work. I'll show you some examples.
Okay.
One of those colors would have been picked up into the border, but not all the times. But sometimes it would have been. Sometimes the borders were actually colored to simulate hardwood. But you'll see, as you'll see, some of the borders I have that are examples are very colorful. Okay, here's another example of what was happening in the period. Again, going back to the books that were being made at the time, this kind of technique, this is the oil and water cones technique. This was also done by the bookbinders on covers, on book covers, and also on inside book covers. This is a very, very popular technique. This didn't even be done by artists. This was done by craftsmen. And it was just done just to give a little bit of a decorative effect on those book covers, but also this was also applied to wall covering as well, wallpapers in the 18th century. Very popular technique. I'm sorry, did you have a question?
No, I just said I did something similar on my bedroom wall.
In England, what was happening was King George had a company called the East India Company, and he was importing all kinds of exotic goods from Asia. And these goods have all kinds of beautiful designs on them, whether it be ceramics or whether it be fabric. Well, wallpapers were something that were brought over here from Asia. And firstly, the Asian factors that would trade with England and France and Holland, they would give these wallpapers as gifts, firstly. And when the European traders brought these over, they captured the fascination of the Europeans because of the French and the English, especially the British first, because this kind of artwork was never seen before. And again, this was done in fabrics, on silk fabrics, and by hand. And this is a hand painting, Chinese hand painting of about the mid to late 18th century. And this is a great example of what was being imported. And it got so popular that the Europeans began to copy it because there wasn't enough to go around. So many people wanted that kind of artwork. So this is a European example of an Asian handprint, or hand-painted design. You can see the difference. There's quite a difference. This is a little bit more stiff, more crude. This has beautiful, and the artwork too is just so naturalistic and so beautifully done. And again, this is the European interpretation, the French interpretation, it's probably British interpretation of the Chinese papers. Also, this led to another really interesting technique by the French going into the late 18th century. Murals became very, very important as a wallpaper. Travel was what really got this thing going, because there were all kind of writings on Marco Polo and all the other very, very important explorers who traveled all over the world and brought back all these stories and all these interesting drawings of what was happening and of all the flora and fauna all over the world that no one had ever seen before. And so there was two French companies. In fact, one is still in business, the Zubair Company over in Paris. Started recreating. They hired artists, fine artists, to recreate the scenics that were imagined from Asia, from Africa. That these explorers came back and explained, and all the different animals and all the different flowers that those guys never saw. And these were again made by block print. And these were so elaborate. It took 25 to 30 panels like this to circumnavigate a room. And every one was different. And there was, in the beginning, It's very, very exotic scenics. I wish I had an example, but they're so rare. The Cooper Hewitt Museum, about 5 years ago, did a major exhibition of their collection of these 18th and 18th century scenics. It was very, very well done. But they have a great collection of them. And also Winterthur Museum over in Wilmington, Delaware. Also, DuPont. This guy had pickers all over the country finding decorative objects for him, all through the ages when he was putting together his museum. And he has collections of these 18th and 18th century Oriental hand-painted murals. He had so many. He's got them in his offices, in the general offices over there. He has so many of them. It was amazing. When I toured the place, we produced a book for them, for the Winterthur Museum about 7 or 8 years ago. And I had gotten an inside tour and their offices had these hand-painted murals from the 18th century, just in their offices. It's amazing, just amazing. So that was a major, major trend. This is another technique that became very, very popular. This is a French block print.